my name is Claudie, and this video is going to be a part of the CES series. CES stands for Claudie's Emotional Spectrum Chart, and that is the tool I created to explain how I believe our thoughts and our emotions are the beating hearts to every reality. Stay tuned because this video is going to be about the numbers at the bottom of Claudie's Emotional Spectrum Chart. The numbers at the bottom are for people who learn better with numbers and steps and want to get a better understanding of how CESC works. So CESC can be used to estimate a person or a body of people's MOAH, emotional range, and probable force. It can be estimated by going through steps 1 through 6, which are as follows. Step 1 is forces. Step 2 is CES, which is Claudie's Emotional Spectrum. Step 3 is choice. Step 4 is a mover or many movers. Step 5 is the perspective that is built through steps 1 through 4. And step 6 are the probable forces. So each of the 3 categories have a force, mover, and a probable force, with the exception of the emotional category because its probable force is perspective, represented by the perspective category in purple. These 2 categories, the emotional and the perspective category, are considered mostly feminine. This is because they are representing the more mental aspects to the chart, and they have a more fluctuating way of forming. Fluctuation is typically seen with feminine energy, where the physical and the reality categories are considered to be mostly masculine energy. They are representing the physical aspects to the chart, which actually have more of a constant solidifying way of forming. But that's for another video, so back to the numbers on the bottom of the chart. Now, when looking at the chart, keep in mind that the intention is either dominance, which is represented by the bottom of the chart, or liberation, which is represented by the top half of the chart. So dominance in red, liberation in lavender. And this can manifest both as physical dominance or liberation or mental dominance or liberation. The coherent action will either encourage dependency, which is represented by the bottom half of the chart, or autonomy, which is represented by the top half of the chart. Also, the forces and movers noted at the very top and very bottom. Forces and movers noted at the very top and very bottom are interchangeable, so they can be seen as either number 1s, which are forces, or number 4s, which are movers. So step 1 is number 1 from any of the force categories, including the societal or cysteine at the very top and very bottom. Now here's the definition of a force. Forces are labeled number 1 on the bottom of each force section of Claudie's Emotional Spectrum Chart. These are the intentional or unintentional positions on CESC in one of the 3 force categories. This includes the body's senses in the emotional category, Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the physical category, and factual knowledge and non-factual knowledge in the intellectual category. Forces are things that are known in general to the individual and what is known by the majority when it comes to a body of people. A force's emotional energy can be either positive, negative, or balanced. This is where Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes in, as it is a known and agreed upon tool used throughout the medical community, and it has been for approximately 100 years. It provides the fundamental understanding to human incentives that manifest in physical form. But what I believe has been overlooked, and maybe because of its fluctuating way of forming, are emotions. Emotional energy are the seeds to influence, and it is influence that incentivizes behavior. how those emotions are stimulated are through the body's senses. Without senses, there would be nothing to react to, which is why the body's senses are the fourth section in the emotional category. An emotion is a reaction to something triggered by the body's senses, which we all know are sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. But along with that, and I call it a sixth sense, is perception, which splits off into positive perception, balanced perception, and negative perception. The positive and negative perceptions are determined by the emotions felt. In the intellectual category, factual knowledge and non-factual knowledge are forces because it is here that a regressing or evolving individual, society, or civilization are determined. This is because one cannot grow intellectually with false information, and depending on the severity of the falsehood, this could lead to a regressing individual, society, and civilization. It is through factual knowledge evolution is understood and achieved. This is why factual knowledge and non-factual knowledge are the forces in the intellectual category. The emotions are shown as number 2 and labeled Claudi's emotional spectrum, and this is the next step to determining an MOAH, emotional range, and probable force. But first, here's a visual to better understand how the emotions work. Each emotion has an opposite emotion that can stimulate equal levels of influence. Within these circles are the emotions that are between the two polar opposite emotions. They are opposite but on the same circle because one cannot exist without the other. How can we distinguish love without the existence of pain? And how can we distinguish courage without the existence of fear? But then the question becomes, how do we know how a person or a body of people felt during a point in time? Without any physical proof of how they are feeling, an emotion can be estimated based on knowing the main contributing factors that influence human behavior, which are shown as Maslow's hierarchy of needs on Claudi's emotional spectrum chart, along with the societal forces and movers of that time period. Keep in mind, many emotions can be felt at once, but it is the most influential emotions that will incentivize or even control the behavior, which forms the experience. What is formed during those experiences are thoughts. The next step is number 3. Number 3 is representing choice. The choice a person or a body of people have prior to using the movers. At the bottom, you'll notice they are labeled both number 3 and number 4. And this is because it is both a constant and a mover, which is range of tenacity, labeled number 4. So this is where a person must make a choice between positive polar gravitational emotional energy or negative polar gravitational emotional energy. Here's the definition to polar gravitational emotional energy. The duality or friction of positive and negative emotional energy within and around a person or body of people that results in a push towards either a positive ascending or negative descending outcome. This outcome results as MOAH, ranging from 1 through 7, probable force and or emotional range. What determines if polar gravitational emotional energy is positive or negative is a person or a body of people's choice. The duality or friction of positive and negative emotional energy is stimulated by internal and external emotions, thoughts, behaviors, and reality. This is also how perspective continues to form. In other words, there's always going to be something that stimulates powerful emotions, either positive or negative. But this is where the question lies. Will the deterring emotions be allowed to derail one from the main goal or from the outcome they want? Whether that be autonomy, dependency, dominance, or liberation. But if distracting emotions are permitted to derail one from one's goals, then that would place a person on the negative end of range of tenacity, which is also the emotional perception category mover. This is why the bottom is labeled both 3 and 4, because having tenacity to achieve a goal is a choice, one that is made over and over again. This then stimulates negative polar gravitational emotional energy if one permits negative emotions to derail them from their goal, increasing the probability for negative forces, movers, and probable forces. If deterrent emotions aren't allowed to deter one from one's goals or the goals that are set, then that would place a person on the positive end of range of tenacity. Positive range of tenacity is representing the constant choice of persevering through deterring emotion, whether that be positive or negative, to achieve the goals set for oneself. The range of tenacity is the force behind polar gravitational emotional energy. So from the numbers 3 and 4 in the emotional perception category, the movers in the physical and the intellectual categories are also labeled number 4 and can also be used to increase positive emotional energy. Number 4 is the next step and are labeled number 4 at the bottom of the mover section. Movers, which are the active aspects that can either increase positive emotional energy or increase negative emotional energy. Movers, labeled number 4 on the bottom of each mover section of Claudi's emotional spectrum chart. They are the active aspects that can be applied by a person or body of people to either ascend or descend on Claudi's emotional spectrum chart. In the emotional perception category, the positive emotional energy is increasing tenacity and the negative emotional energy is decreasing tenacity. In the physical perception category, the positive emotional energy is opportunity and the negative emotional energy is lack of opportunity. And in the intellectual perception category, the positive emotional energy is curiosity and the negative emotional energy is lack of curiosity. This will either form an autonomous and evolving person or body of people or a dependent and regressing person or body of people. This also helps create positive or negative polar gravitational emotional energy. If the topic has to do more with society as a whole, the societal forces and movers seen at the very bottom and very top can be used to either increase a positive emotional range or increase a negative emotional range. As polar gravitational emotional energy is occurring and building up perspective through duality of positive and negative emotional energy, and MOAH begins to form regarding that topic. The fifth step is the MOAH/perspective built towards steps 1 through 4, which coincide with the most influential emotion felt towards that topic. The MOAH ranges are labeled 1 through 7 and will correspond with the most influential emotion, and this is how MOAH/perspective is estimated. Wherever the topic gravitates more towards in the emotional, physical, and intellectual perception categories will determine the emotional range. Labeled number 6 on the bottom of each probable force section on Claudi's emotional spectrum chart is the increased probability of an outcome that corresponds with the emotions and perspective along with the forces and movers of that category and or forces and movers of other categories on Claudi's emotional spectrum chart. In the physical category, they are the positive emotional energy of increasing probability for success and the negative emotional energy of decreasing probability for success. Both are reflective in the reality category. The emotional perception category's probability for success is perspective, which are the MOAH ranges 1 through 7 from a dependency to autonomy. In the intellectual perception category, the probable force is the positive emotional energy of being least vulnerable to manipulation and the negative emotional energy being most vulnerable to manipulation. Both are reflective in a regressing or evolving person or body of people. This is generated by positive or negative polar gravitational emotional energy. The probable force can then be found encapsulated in either the emotional range or will correspond with the MOAH determined, and this is how the numbers on the charts can be used to estimate MOAH, emotional range, and probable forces of a person or a body of people. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please leave them down below, and remember, mind your emotions.